Lelda Smits is a finance journalist, and she's been awarded as an entrepreneur and co-founder of something called the Capital Network. And basically, she spends her days thinking, how can we increase financial literacy, especially among young people? Good morning, Lelda Smits.
Hello, David. A pleasure to be on the line with you today.
If you could teach one thing to every Australian student, what would it be?
I think it would have to be how to budget. And might I say this, maybe not just for young students, but for students of all ages. I think budgeting and having visibility of your budget is something that perhaps isn't as well as understood as it should be and can help people of all ages.
See, I thought you might have said the principle of compounding interest.
I think that's a principle perhaps we could learn down the track, but often it just starts with the very, very simple things, knowing how much money is coming in and how much money is coming out. In a way, I even liken it to cooking or baking. If someone says, what would you like for dinner? Well, what's in the fridge? You can't really put together a great meal if you don't know what you're cooking with.
So it's the Mr. McCorber approach to finances.
Really, I think we all have to start with the basics, and from the basics we can build onto hopefully something great.
Tonight, a lot of money will be spent in the federal budget helping poor people. Now, do you ever wonder if we thought outside the box and taught financial literacy, what would be the long-term effects?
Absolutely. I wonder that not just for individuals, but for society collectively as a whole. And if anyone's wondering why is financial literacy important, obviously when we empower ourselves as individuals, it's not just helping you as an individual, it's helping your community. And I think this is why financial literacy is a community issue, because as we take care of ourselves, we strengthen our communities to have financial literacy and essentially to empower ourselves, the financial system, and the more efficient allocation of resources within the real economy.
Yeah. See, I mean, and I don't want to imply, because some people could think that, well, you're implying that poor people are poor because they're financially illiterate. That's, blaming the poor. The truth is that some people are poor because they're just unlucky, and just like some people are rich because they're very lucky, like they're the right parents. But some of us are poor because we make bad decisions.
Yeah, I would never, ever make a statement on why someone is in the financial situation they are in, because there are a myriad of reasons why that. But certainly when you look to the future and what you can do, what anyone can do to improve their financial situation, there are some key factors, and one of those is to have visibility over what is in your bank account, what the money coming in and the money going out. And that's really a first step. And then building on that with education. And I think what I really try and do, I'm a director of the Australian Shareholders Association. What they really try and do with independent education is to show that you can do this in a very simple way, but it's about seeking the right information, ensuring it is independent information, because of course there are so many people selling products out there and services. You really, I think, when you approach the issue of financial literacy for yourself, want to ensure you're approaching it in the right way.
But how far would you go? I mean, you say, look, if I could do one thing, it would be to teach the kids how to manage a budget. But do you think it would be worthwhile to go on to talk about buying shares, superannuation, the cost of a home loan? How far would you go?
Look, they are definitely all very, very important issues. to raise, and certainly as a child gets older into being a teenager and is starting to make more serious purchasing decisions, there are issues they should know about. I must say, I am, of course, partial to discussing the share market, being myself a finance journalist. So I don't think that you can start your education too early. And I love to speak to children about, your everyday stocks that impact that are all around you, going into Coles and Woolworths and reminding them that, you don't just buy groceries here, but you can actually buy a share in this company. So that as you spend money on the company, you can also profit in the company, and just making the share market real. Because I think so many finances are these, and the concept of finance is often not real to a person, that maybe numbers in a bank account or numbers on a spreadsheet. And if we can bring it into our real lives, and if we can show people the impact in their everyday life that their financial decisions are making, it becomes so much more tangible and real, and a person can become engaged in an interesting way and not in a challenging theoretical way.
Well, my advice to anyone getting into a newsroom is there are 2 rounds. You pick one of them, and you should definitely do them. One is courts, and the other is finance. Now, pick one of those. And the reason for that is that they look complicated, but if you can get your head around it, you'll never go hungry again, because they're the jobs that nobody else wants to do. I went to the courts. I did not choose finance. If you have a basic understanding of finance as a reporter, you'll always get a job in a newsroom, because nobody else does.
That is a fantastic point, and I wish somebody would have told me that when I was studying myself. I ended up in my first full-time job as a finance journalist by complete mistake.
Did you know anything?
I knew nothing. I barely, and I was so confident in my interview. And then I got to the very last stages of my interview, and I said to my then prospective boss, I have to tell you, I really know very, very little about the ASX, the share market stocks. And, fortunately, he looked at my background and he said, look, I can see you're a keen learner, and if you take that approach, you'll be okay. But it was a steep learning curve. And when I did learn, and a lot of the, on-the-job self-teaching myself, I actually then went on to teach a lot of other journalists that joined that also had limited knowledge. And I learned it's not as hard as we are made to believe it is. There are some very, very simple concepts, even in the stock market. Stocks go up and stocks go down. And, it's either green for up and red for down.
Have you ever seen that movie? What's it called? The Big Short. It's about the global financial crisis. And every now and then they interrupt the story of the movie, and one of the characters turns and looks directly into the camera and says, "Did you find that confusing? You were meant to. It was meant to be confusing. It's deliberately confusing to exclude you from the money-making process."
Absolutely. And I think finance historically has been defined by this confusion and opacity, long words, complicated concepts. And, that's why I said, coming back to that analogy earlier, how are you going to make dinner for yourself if you don't know what you've got in the pantry or in the fridge? You really owe it to yourself to look at your finances, ask yourself what's going in, what's going out, what are my obligations, and planning your life in the same way that you'd plan a meal, as opposed to perhaps at the last moment thinking I'm hungry and order Uber Eats.
Yeah, well, Jesse sent us this text. He says, a major problem for poor people is the easy opportunity to get into lots of debt and no help getting out of it. Step 1, small emergency fund. Don't have to put small emergencies on credit, which is more debt. Again, if you were teaching that in, say, in high school, and I don't know, get kids on a bus and say, look, drive around and say, this is what will happen if you make really bad decisions. And you know that ad? Let's turn on a TV. You know that ad where the guy comes out and it's a big joke because he's a wizard who's going to give you money short term to get you over a problem. It's really funny, isn't it, kids? Except it's not, because if you go down that path, you could end up paying enormous amounts of money in interest. Let's talk about interest. Nobody's doing that.
No, look, I think there are many people that would like to see financial literacy improved, certainly nationally and in schools, and also personal finance. But there are many changes that would need to occur for us to see that in schools. Certainly, there are groups out there, though, in the absence of a formal curriculum. I must bring it back to Australian Shareholders Association that do provide a free independent education. There are free government resources out there. And I suppose what can we do in our day-to-day lives? Really just start the conversation. When I reflect on the lessons that I've learned in my life, a lot of them have been conversations from family or friends or life experiences where you learn either from the good or the bad about money. And then certainly I'd like to encourage people just to take an empowered approach and say, I'm going to teach myself this, I'm going to learn, I'm going to seek out independent education, and first and foremost, take control, like you would take control of your fitness, knowing that you never reach the point where you're fully fit and can stop, but it's that ongoing daily journey.
Well, John says, teachers teaching financial skills. I've seen lots of teachers in my banking days, and I'm not sure that they are the best people to be teaching our young people about finance matters. Would it actually take a lot to make a big difference?
I always think, I believe in the power of small steps. I believe in the power of simply starting to make a significant difference. I think many people, in particular when it comes to finance, are so scared, so paralysed by what they don't know, what they are told is confusing. Really, just to acknowledge that this is your life. Your mental health is reliant, I think, often on your financial health. So many other factors of your life are. If we start to look at finance as a basic skill in terms of, how do I know that I need to eat fruits and vegetables? How do I know that I should be walking daily? How do I know my basic budget? This is just a basic approach to the health and maintenance of your life. And if we take that very, very simple approach, just knowing that you can, and then seeking out those simple steps, I think it can make a significant difference to everyone's life.
Okay, well, Lelda Smits, thank you very much for giving us your time this morning. Maybe thinking outside the box, maybe it would be a good investment to teach financial literacy, or at least some basics, in our schools. I mean, somebody says, well, if it's not being taught at home, that's a bad example. Well, exactly. But how do you break that cycle? Maybe we could get a big dividend from just putting aside a few days each year as the kids progress through high school to talk about financial literacy. I mean, you could include it in home economics or do they still have that? In your maths classes? There'd be opportunities, surely. Lelda Smits, thank you very much for your time, a journalist and co-founder of something called the Capital Network, and she's a member of the Shareholders Association as well.